The sun was setting over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple as Jake Ranger Collins pulled into the gravel lot of the Iron Brotherhood MC clubhouse. The low rumble of his Harley was a familiar comfort, drowning out the thoughts that always crept in at dusk, the ghosts of war, the faces of brothers lost. He killed the engine and swung his leg over the bike, feeling the weight of the day settle in his bones. Inside the clubhouse, the usual crowd was gathered. Veterans turned bikers, men and women who had traded fatigues for leather but still carried the same mission in their hearts. They weren't outlaws, they were protectors, warriors who had sworn to look after their own. And tonight, they had a mission. Jake walked in, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Danny Doc Reynolds, sitting at the bar nursing a beer with a haunted look in his eyes. Doc's once steady hands trembled as he lifted the bottle to his lips. His shop had been torched last night, another casualty of Victor Salazar, the corrupt loan shark who preyed on struggling veterans. Jake pulled up a stool beside him. "You all right, Doc?" Doc let out a shaky breath, his voice rough. "They took everything, Ranger. The shop, my tools, everything I worked for." He met Jake's gaze, his eyes dark with something deeper than anger. "They threatened my family, man. My daughter was inside when the fire started." A murmur of rage spread through the room. The Brotherhood didn't take kindly to threats against their own, especially when family was involved. Jake clenched his jaw, feeling the familiar fire stir in his chest. They had all come home from war expecting a better life, but some battles didn't end overseas. "Salazar's been doing this for too long," Jake said, his voice low but firm. "We gave the law a shot, and they've done nothing. It's time we handled things our way." A heavy silence fell over the room before Mike Bear Holloway, a towering presence with a gruff demeanor, stepped forward. "I say we take the bastard down," he growled, "once and for all." Heads nodded. The decision had been made. They weren't just going to sit back and watch another brother fall. The first step was gathering intel. The Brotherhood worked like a well-oiled machine, splitting up to dig into Salazar's operations. Danny Wheels Lawson, their resident tech wizard, hacked into local property records, uncovering just how deep Salazar's claws reached. "Guy's got ties to the mayor's office, real estate deals across town," she said, shaking her head. "He's bleeding this town dry, and no one's lifting a damn finger." Meanwhile, Tom Ghost Martinez and Bear tailed Salazar's enforcers to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. Ghost, ever the silent observer, watched them like a hawk, noting their patterns, their movements. That night, the brothers gathered around the clubhouse table, poring over maps and reports, planning their next move. Jake leaned over the table, pointing to a red-marked location. "This warehouse, it's his base of operations. We hit him where it hurts." Bear grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Let's pay him a visit." They rode in at midnight, engines silent, tires crunching over gravel as they approached the warehouse. The desert air was thick with tension. Jake motioned for the others to take their positions, spreading out to flank the building. Inside, Salazar's men were busy counting stacks of cash and loading boxes of stolen goods into trucks. They didn't see it coming. The door burst open, and the Iron Brotherhood stormed in, a wave of righteous fury. Ghost took out the lights, plunging the warehouse into darkness, while Wheels jammed their radios. Chaos erupted. Jake found Salazar in the back office, his face pale with shock. The man was slick, all suit and empty threats, but Jake could see the fear in his eyes. "You messed with the wrong people, Salazar," Jake said, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him against the desk. "You don't know who you're dealing with," Salazar spat, his voice shaking. Jake smirked. "No, I don't think you do." Bear stepped in, holding a duffel bag full of evidence they had gathered, proof of Salazar's illegal dealings, names of the veterans he'd exploited. "This goes to the press tomorrow," Bear said, tossing it onto the desk. "You're done." Salazar's face twisted in fury, but he knew he was beat. "You think this ends with me? There's always someone else." Jake leaned in, his voice cold. "Then we'll be here for them too." The fallout was swift. The next day, local reporters ran the story, exposing Salazar's empire of corruption. His powerful connections weren't enough to save him, and within a week, he was behind bars, his assets frozen. Doc stood in front of the smoldering remains of his shop, watching the Brotherhood work to clear the debris and rebuild. Jake handed him a wrench, a quiet promise in his eyes. "You're not alone, Doc. You never were." Tears welled in Doc's eyes, but he nodded, gripping the wrench tightly. "Thanks, brother." Weeks later, the club sat around the fire outside their clubhouse, the roar of engines long gone, replaced by laughter and stories. Jake stared into the flames, feeling something he hadn't in years: peace. He looked around at his brothers and sisters, their faces illuminated by the flickering light. "This doesn't end with Salazar," he said finally. "There's always going to be someone trying to take advantage of people like us." He took a deep breath. "But we stand together, always." Bear raised his beer. "To justice. Our way." A chorus of agreement followed, and as they clinked bottles and toasted to their mission, Jake knew they were more than just a motorcycle club. They were a family, a force, a reminder that some battles were worth fighting, even long after the war was over. The road stretched ahead, endless and unknown, but they weren't afraid. They rode not for vengeance, but for justice, for every veteran who needed someone to stand for them. Because sometimes justice didn't wear a badge, sometimes it rode on two wheels.